Across southern Africa, we had the kingdom of Mutapa, or Mwena Mutapa, from around the 15th century. For such a large empire, we have little knowledge. This is hardly surprising, though, when you consider that this civilization covered much of what is today South Africa and Zimbabwe. And this is one area of the continent where Europeans worked the hardest to suppress any idea of African history, civilization, or culture before Europeans. During the apartheid era, children in schools were taught that Africans were latecomers to that region, arriving after the Europeans. The most famous sites in the region are Mapungubwe, from around the 11th century, which is now a natural heritage site, and the ancient city of Great Zimbabwe, from around the 11th century. Great Zimbabwe was a walled city with stone walls approximately 11 metres high and 6 metres thick. This was at a time when castles in Europe were mainly simple motte and bailey construction, i.e. an earth mound with a wooden fence surrounding a courtyard. Great Zimbabwe is said to have been occupied by approximately around 10,000 people, but was large enough to accommodate almost 20,000. Its population included a thriving artisan community, and now it's generally accepted that when a society produces art, it can be regarded as civilised. The journalist Julie Fredericks, in her book None But Ourselves, recorded an interview with Paul Sinclair, the curator of archaeology at Great Zimbabwe. Sinclair stated he was threatened with losing his job if he publicly said that blacks had built Zimbabwe. He went on to say that it was the first time since Germany in the 1930s that archaeology has been so directly censored. Further north and to the east, we have the Swahili civilisations. One of the most famous cities was Kilwa in modern-day Tanzania. Famed North African scholar and traveller Ibn Battuta described Kilwa as one of the beautiful cities of the world. The houses were built of coral stone with courtyards and decorated with artefacts from across the world. Larger houses had indoor plumbing, and some even had a swimming pool. The Swahili were renowned as strong sailors, with evidence of trade with countries as far as China. When the British arrived there, they found a port large enough to accommodate their entire naval force. And Kilwa was just one of many such Swahili cities, stretching up the eastern coast of Africa. Finally, Azania. Located near the Horn of Africa, little is known about Azania. I mention it for two reasons. Firstly, it was a civilization mentioned in ancient texts by the likes of Herodotus and Pausanias. So we know that it was both existed and was a civilization of note. So why do we know so little about it today? This, unfortunately, is a familiar state of affairs concerning African history. Secondly, it was the inspiration for Africanist political parties fighting for freedom in apartheid South Africa. They wanted to adopt Azania as the new name for the nations. Parties such as the Pan-African Congress of Azania, the Socialist Party of Azania, and the Azanian People's Organization wanted to lose the European given name and adopt an African name, recognizing the continent's past civilizations, like so many other African nations following liberation. Unfortunately, they were defeated by parties such as the ANC, who were backed heavily by white South Africans and European governments.